It certainly may be. And joining us now is Eric Beach. He is co-chair for the Great America PAC, which is supporting Donald Trump. It was created for Donald Trump. I'm going to get to that in just a minute, but first I want to ask you, what do you think about Paul Ryan's statement that he's just not ready to support your candidate?
Well, I'm a little disappointed in Speaker Ryan. You know, I think at this point we need to unify behind our nominee. It's clear that Donald Trump is our nominee, and I think he's going to run a very tough general election race. I think this showcases the reason why Donald Trump ran. You know, Congress had a very low approval rating going into this election, going into this cycle, and I think after 2012, there was an autopsy report that said, how do we grow our party? And you may disagree with some of Mr. Trump's rhetoric, but one thing that you can't disagree with is that he is growing the party with all of the new voters that he's coming in. I just got my hair done in your backstage there, and the gal said, hey, you know what? I'm a registered Democrat in California. I've been there all my life, but I'm gonna vote for Donald Trump. And you're seeing that more and more.
Well, thank you for using one of our employees to your favor there. All right, so Donald Trump, you know, he lives and dies by his rhetoric. His rhetoric does seem to fluctuate quite a bit. One of the things he has done is he has blasted his opponents because of their use of super PACs, and yet here you are starting a super PAC for Donald Trump. Why?
Well,
he doesn't need your money, apparently.
Sure. Well, first of all, this is the first time Donald Trump's ever run for elected office. So, you know, there's a lot of rhetoric that does come from Donald Trump. And I think you're going to start seeing him pivot. But, you know, make no mistake, you know, he's going to need a finance operation. He's going to need a grassroots operation that's been built in place. We have over 3 million ardent supporters for Donald Trump that we've accumulated, and we're going to mobilize them and energize them in the general election.
Okay, so, Eric, let's talk about who is the Trump supporter, because Donald Trump has done well with the core Republicans in the United States. He's done better with the fringe.
You know, I think it's interesting to see. In 2008, Barack Obama ran on hope and change, and I think the subsequent 8 years was anything but. I think Donald Trump is tapping into this movement of people that feel disenfranchised. It's not just angry white Americans, it's angry all Americans that are upset that their government's not listening to them. Even now that Donald Trump's the nominee, you have elected officials that have been in D.C. for a very long time. They're basically saying and denying the voters. And I think, you know, the voters are sick and tired of not being heard. They feel like it's an episode of the Hunger Games where it's just D.C. versus the outside world.
Well, but you've got big-time Republicans speaking out against Donald Trump. Meg Whitman saying he is unfit to be president. Mitt Romney saying he is unfit to be president. Those two people alone have a lot of followers behind them as well.
Well, possibly. But what's interesting about Donald Trump is even though he's a billionaire, whether he's a 2 billionaire or a 10 billionaire, I don't know. I know it's more than 2 or 10 than me. He's a grassroots candidate. He's a Tea Party type of candidate. So you're seeing a self-funding candidate that's actually bringing in the grassroots. In the past, we've asked the grassroots to accept the establishment candidate. So while I appreciate the fact that, you know, Governor Romney as well as Meg Whitman, you know, have supporters, they're different types of supporters. They're not the energy supporters. They're not the grassroots. They're the supporters that maybe help with some of the policy decisions that Donald Trump rails against.
Well, Hillary Clinton has already started some ads against Donald Trump, which are pretty effective. You're a super PAC, which means you pretty much will be putting ads on TV and on the internet and paying for those ads. What can we expect to see here in California? Because now we're a little sad that we're not going to be making the decision we thought we would.
Well, you know, we are going to coordinate Donald Trump as a nominee. At some point, he has to get over 1237. So we're going to still be part of the process, and we're closer to being part of the process than we have been in the past. And I would argue that any time that I can put Hillary Clinton in an ad and people can hear and listen to her, I really think that it works towards Donald Trump's favor. So we're going to do as much as we can.
Do you have something good up your sleeve?
Well, we have a few things that are pretty good up our sleeve, but the one thing that hasn't been addressed in the campaign are the positives. You see some of the testimonials about Donald Trump. You know, no one that's worked for him, at least that I can see, has ever come out and said, hey, you know, this guy was a really bad boss. You know, he's written books. He's been in the business community. You don't see people saying, oh, I had a really bad business dealing with him, unless they've been planted.
Good point. Eric Beach, thank you very much for joining us. We look forward to seeing what your PAC is going to do.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff.